guys, I'm going to try to make this quick. It's about melanocyte-stimulating hormone alpha, which is a peptide hormone or neuropeptide. It has great implications for major depressive disorder and CFS, among other things. It's found to be way too high in both of these. I just had it tested. I thought it was going to be 20 or 30% too high. It was 450% too high. Stuck out like a sore thumb, so let's talk about it. So basically this peptide hormone comes from the hypothalamus right here. It comes from the arc, and it comes from the anterior hypothalamic nuclei, or nucleus, which is one right there. So in a psychiatric context, it lowers GABA, which is bad news when it gets too high, of course, because it's going to lower too much GABA, resulting in anxiety, among other things. It gets up in the amygdala, of course, this guy, which is extremely salient in emotional regulation, just really involved in emotions. It's overactive in depression and PTSD. So gets up in there, goes into the medial nucleus, which is this little guy. It breaks up into little pieces, of course, and it binds to receptors called MC4R. What happens when it binds? Well, when it's at high levels and it's just really binding in there, more anxiety, destruction of appetite, hypersecretion of CRF, corticotropic releasing factor, which is, involved in the HPA axis, and it makes the HPA axis hyperactive. That's going to cause, obviously, a ton of depression and just make you feel like shit. Moving on, there's that MRI simulator thing for a class, but here's the old hypothalamus and the pituitary. So now with ME/CFS and those kind of things, it lowers your pain threshold very much, but it causes horrible extreme fatigue. It does this by basically blocking the receptors for a neuropeptide called orexin. So what's the big deal about the receptors being blocked and orexin not being able to do its job? Well, orexin's job is extremely important in regulating appetite, arousal, alertness, and wakefulness. So obviously you're not going to have those things very much if it's not binding to its receptor. And ironically enough, a new medication called Belsomra, actually one of the mechanisms is blocking orexin receptors, and they found when they block it, it can't bind and do its job. People get tired, and it makes it okay sleep medication. So if you have really high levels of melanocyte-stimulating hormone alpha, which is blocking orexin receptors to a high degree, it's almost like you're on sleeping pills all the time. Moving on, basically they found if you just destroy a bunch of orexin neurons, what condition do you get? You get narcolepsy. There's suspicion that in autoimmunity, some conditions, the immune system can kill these. And lastly, what makes the melanocyte-stimulating hormone alpha too high in the first place? Cytokines, big time, and high CRF. What are two ways to bring it down? Light exposure is good, and oxytocin. So find ways to get more oxytocin, and that is basically that. So have cuddelz to feel less like shit. That's all I have to say. Get it checked maybe too. Okay, bye guys.